I am going to hit record. So on your side, you're going to see a document that says it's or got it. So
I don't.
go ahead and
I
record.
don't want to give my husband that.
Oh, no, you're fine. With me also is Heather Nykirk, who is one of our extension educators in Stark County also. And our guest speaker today is David Marrison of Coshocton County.
Chat. Hello, everybody.
And we are virtual and live and in person at the Farm Signage Review for the 2022 Kitchen Table Conversation. And today's topic is when death happens, manage the farm without your business partner. So your topic of question is right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Right on
The first
target.
question.
So you want to ask your question again? So everybody in the virtual world can hear you too.
Okay, how should you have your farm set up so that if something does happen to your husband, it's listed as sole proprietorship on your taxes? And I just wondered on how you should really set your farm up and how you should protect yourself.
So the answer there is always about depends, right? And I'll make sure, and Jacqueline, you can be our voice out there in virtual land because you can make sure that everybody can hear. But we'll talk about that as, do you, on your 1040, your tax form, you file as married filing jointly, right?
Correct.
So, but it shows up sole proprietor for your husband, and that is how you're basically paying self-employment tax, right?
Right.
Okay, so the reason his name's showing up because you're paying into his social security, not yours.
Right.
I mean, to be right. So that's a conversation to have with your tax accountant about managing that in the future. Post, say your husband's death, about how that would manage. Now seamlessly on the tax side, it's going to continue seamlessly. You won't notice a difference because you're filing jointly already. So the big thing is that you've been paying into Social Security, into his Social Security, which the deeper conversation to have is to talk about the death benefits from Social Security that you might receive from your husband. And then on the business side, it's going to seamlessly go from his sole proprietorship to yourself, unless through the estate planning process with your attorneys that upon the death of one of you, you may change business structure. So it could be an LLC in the future. It could stay sole proprietor, or maybe it's managed through a trust situation. So it will depend on your ultimate estate planning goals and objectives at the end of it. So, but right now it's for the benefit of his Social Security payment, I'm sure. So, yeah. But seamlessly record keeping it should be the same. You won't notice a big difference. Does that help?
Well, it makes a difference in things like workman's comp.
Yep.
And just different things, your credit rating,
Mhm.
your ability to purchase after something happens to him.
Yep.
Um,
Those are good things to check out now while you're both living, to see what each other's credit rating is, and then use strategies. If yours needs to be improved, you can work to do some of that. So, yeah. A lot of questions tied into that one question.
yeah.
A lot of bunny trails we could go down, right?
Yeah.
So we have a few online, and of course, we want to keep this a conversation. So we have a local one-person conversation or a three-person conversation, but we have many online here from across the country, it looks like, for sure, out of state even. But the whole subject of this, when we put the scripture together, was death can change everything, especially your ability to manage the farm without your business partner. So when I thought of that, it's like, well, it's more than my spouse, because in some situations it may be brothers that farm together, or it may be sisters that farm together. Maybe it's a brother-sister team, or multiple generations that farm together. So use that term business partner to spread that a little wider. But how are you going to do managing your farm without your spouse or sibling? And then we'll talk about some strategies. So on the sheet that's in front of you, and this is probably more of when you have a conversation, well, hopefully that conversation turns into a brainstorming session for yourself. So I tried to make this like, okay, I could take this piece of paper home, I can brainstorm it, throw it in my vehicle as I'm driving home from farm science review, think about some of these questions, and then hopefully that opens the doors to ask some of these more in-depth questions that we may need to talk to our extension educator with. Maybe we want to talk to our legal team, our tax team, whatever it may be. So the first question, and you're going to monitor the chat, right? Okay, Heather, thank you. So if anyone drops in a question, don't hesitate, because we want this to be a conversation, just not a monologue by David here, in the typical extension fashion, right? So the first question I would pose about who's involved with the farm operation today, and potentially who's going to be involved with it in the future. So looking at the organizational structure, so it's not easy to talk about death, right? Most of us, that's the last thing that we want to talk about. It's uncomfortable. It's something that really we probably only think about when we have to go to town and go to somebody's calling hours. And then we start to maybe think about our mortality. Maybe someone close passes away and we start to think about, well, how can we operate this farm in the future? So the first part about that is who is involved in the farm operation, who are the important clogs of the operation, or who might potentially be part of that operation, and then how do we operate with each of them missing from the equation? So I have the personal story for myself is in 2010, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and died 7 weeks later. So dad was the sole proprietor. There's a lot of pieces working around dad, but as far as the brains of the operation, it was my dad. So when dad was diagnosed, we started to think like, oh, what are those things that we need to know to be able to manage this farm after he's gone? So I will tell you, two of the first instance with dad was still well enough that he put me on the tractor and showed me all the pins and all the property boundaries of the property, because some of them were still marked with a tree and a rock and a cement post from multiple generations before my father. So I didn't know where all those were. So that was an afternoon on a tractor where we rode around looking at every boundary marker so that dad could talk about the history with me about here's where the boundary marker is. And oh, by the way, there's a gas line easement through this section of the farm. That's why you see kind of a clearing through these woods. And then went back, and some of that was a little bit of a history lesson as too. Now, sure, if I would have paid attention as a kid, I might have known a little bit more of that, but I didn't know that. The second was my dad always did all the work with the Farm Service Agency. So we're, part of the Farm Service Agency program, but mom wasn't involved with that. My sisters weren't involved with that. I definitely wasn't involved with that. But that was one of those trips that we took where actually to develop that relationship with the Farm Service Agency, when dad had to report the crops for the year, his planting of what they did, he actually, that was the first time I rode along with him and went and then sat and met the Farm Service Agency people and actually went through the paperwork. I didn't even know what the paperwork was all about because dad did all the paperwork. So I think the same way as maybe one of the spouses, one of the partners, whatever it may be, maybe they're the ones that deal directly with the bank. But quite typically, two of us are going to go in the bank. We have to sign a note. But maybe it's who is dealing with the AI technician? Who is the one that is dealing with the tax accountant? Who's the one that's dealing with the farm accountant? So think of all the people that the farm unit deals with in a yearly basis. So it could be everyone from the extension educator. We see it traditionally, right, that the senior generation's the ones sitting in the extension programs and getting the information because they left the younger generation at home to work. And even here today, I was talking to a farmer from Jefferson that they drew straws. The one brother stayed home and had a friend come over and help milk the cows today, so that the other brother could come here to the Farm Science Review. So all those relationships that we have, like decide who is doing what. And then I guess in the business world, we would call this cross training. or have you cross-trained people to go make these visits or have those relationships with farm service agency, the accountant, the AI technician, the seed corn salesman? What am I missing?
Making sure you go to the bank and know all the documents, information.
Where the banks are, the documentation,
Passwords are.
Yeah.
passwords are a great one, right?
Passwords. I
If you,
think about trying to put everything on a sheet, so if I have a relationship, say, with a specific bank, you know, whose name is the accountant, what are the numbers, and there's some sources, there's resources to do that, so I've used some online
Yep.
printouts to be able to do that myself, and then put them in a binder, or a bank.
you needed that, take that, bro. So what other things are we forgetting for those, maybe online in the chat? What are some things that we're missing of some of those relationships that we might be forgetting? Or, you know, the first thing is to find out who's involved in the business, but then who has those relationships with others out there that we might not have a relationship with? Anyone want to drop a chat in?
And you're welcome to unmute and ask the
And-
question also.
Yes.
Jacqueline says
Utility.
utility.
Utilities, great, Jacqueline. And that, as you're thinking and dropping into the chat, one of those things, when you say utilities, Jacqueline, I have to chuckle because, you know, on farms, there's a lot of things that don't go through the permitting process when we do it, right? We put electric in, we have a farm agriculture exemption to do some of the things that we do on the farm. And I never knew the electric for our farm came into the main pole and then went into the barn. And then from the pole, from the box there at the barn, then an electric line came down and went to the house, over to the farmhouse. Of course, in Grandpa's mind, this is a good deal, right? Electric comes into the barn, then comes to the house. So who pays the electric bill for my grandpa's house? It was the farm, right? So the farm does it. So all those years, the farm was paying for the electricity. Well, then we had some issues with the milk house drain, which was backing up and water was seeping all over out in the front yard. So we started to dig up the tile line that came out of the milk house, and guess what we found in a place that we didn't think it was? And that was the electric line that went over to the house. Now you think this would be the shortest point between two, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? So you thought if you stood at the pole and looked to the corner of the house across the driveway, that this electric line would make a 45-degree cut across the property into the house. Well, instead, what it looked like was a snake that went out into the middle of the front yard and then made a half moon shape back to the house. So I had to think back in history and think, well, why in the heck would my grandpa and my dad, why would they bury the electric line in like a half moon shape to get back to the house? But then I finally remembered that where the straight line was, there was actually the fuel tank, the diesel tank and the unleaded gas tank was right in its path. So instead of moving the fuel tanks, what they just decided to do was to run the electric in a half moon shape. Now, we had no clue where that electric line was until we hit it, right? So one of the things that inspired me to do was thinking about, can for our farms, we develop a notebook that has maps for these different underground pipes and electric lines that we put out there. So now we have a notebook for the farm that actually shows where the tile lines and the electric lines and everything else in the farm operation is. So then my kids will know where those are at. And if we ever sell the farm, you can actually give that away as well. It's like, here's a book. And this shows where all the lines are, the tile lines, the electric lines, the natural gas line that comes from the house, all that is there. So what other things, Heather, has been put into the chat on that?
Elevator grain and storage contracts.
Great, elevator
And
contracts,
land rental contracts.
land rental contracts.
Who's doing all that negotiating for rented ground?
And that's the land rental contract is a really interesting one because a lot of times it's the senior generation is negotiating the land rental contract with the other senior generation. So one of the things that we've challenged people to think about is as you're making those land leases, which we're doing that right now, that instead of my dad going and making those land leases this year, maybe the two of us, so maybe the husband and wife go and make those land lease visits. Even, and it goes both ways, right? If we're renting ground from somebody else, typically it's one person, it's the person that likes to talk in the operation that goes and gives them the rent check and make sure the lease is good for the next year. So could we involve our spouse or the next generation together when we go make those lease? Because the worst time to meet a tenant that is farming part of your farm is in the calling our lines, right? And saying, oh, by the way, I rent your, those are kind of some weird conversations. I had that when my dad passed away. In the calling hour lines, 3 different farmers came through and offered to rent the land from us in the future, which I thought was maybe not the most appropriate time to have that conversation. But having those conversations before someone dies and having those relationships, we're challenging farmers now too, is that, yeah, maybe you're renting from the older generation, but understanding they have an estate plan in place. So having that conversation with them to naturally meet who is going to own the land in the future. And then can I start developing a relationship with that next generation now? And having their phone number, updating them on what we're doing as cropping practices and our expectation, just to have that conversation going so that the first time you meet somebody is not after someone has passed away. Other comments on other things that people are thinking about?
Elevator grain and storage.
Contracts, knowing where your contracts are. And this could go for some of the milk contracts that people might have. It goes into the farm programs. Any throw in there, I haven't typed it there. Well, what about all this world of insurance? Right, we have crop insurance, and traditionally crop insurance is not a sexy thing that we sit around the kitchen table and talk about. So usually one people will do the insurance. And then what happens when that person's gone? How do you make those crop insurance decisions? How do you make those property insurance decisions even? So again, there's a common theme here, right? About developing relationships, making sure that more than one person doesn't have a relationship, has that relationship and expanding it.
I'm thinking
Thoughts?
also not even just the farm items, but things that go along with the farm, the credit cards, the items that are ordered that, you've got these monthly magazines or whatever, the subscriptions that come in for different things. Even a house that is timeshare, wherever. Different
Right.
things, all different types of things that go along with the family relationship.
And spouse to spouse, a lot of the times we might be aware the bigger gap is, I guess, exists when mom or dad are the ones left in the senior generation, then they die, and then the kids are trying to figure it out. All those different things across the board about having those. So I handed that out, but maybe the Al can pick this one up. Go that way. We have a document that some of the things that Heather and Gigi were talking about allow you to summarize it. It's called Getting Your Farm and Family Affairs in Order. And this is a 37-page PDF writable, but it's part of our estate planning unit that we do when we're talking about planning for the future of your farms. And it actually helps you go through and summarize a lot of these different relationships that you might have. First, we'll talk about your kids and all those, and goes through the power of attorney, who's the power of attorney, who's the financial power of attorney, who's the guardian over your person. After we did a couple of these workshops, we realized we needed to add another line, and that was who's going to be the guardians for domestic pets. Because who's going to take care of the farm dog? And the farm dog's need once grandpa's gone or grandma's gone, because that is an adjustment for them. But family advisors, that includes your personal advisors. We think of everything from accountant to the attorney to the bankers. You talked about the different bank accounts, the insurance, the veterinarians. But then there's a section that's all on personal documents. So where are all the documents that you might have, from death certificates to birth certificates to divorce decrees to diplomas, the medical records? I would tell you, I don't remember half of my medical history from when I was a kid, even though it happened to me. But I have a section in my notebook that talks about my complete medical history from when I was having some medical issues when I was in high school. And that complete documentation is there because it wasn't electronic back then. It was all paper. But think about checkbooks, the deeds, the property deeds, the insurance things, the income tax records, inventories, the mortgage papers, the motor vehicle titles. Where are all those things? We didn't even know when my grandpa died where the combination to the safe was. If I would have just looked upwards when I was down in the basement, he had written it in black mark on one of the cross beams down in the furnace room about what the combination was. So does your spouse even know the combination to the safe? Or do they know where you hid the hay money that you got paid for in cash? And then where's the cookie jar? Is it in the liver package that's hidden in the freezer? Because no one's going to pull the liver package out, or the broccoli package, or Brussels sprouts, even worse, right? So where have you put some of this? I guess your secret stash of money, if you have it, or your family stash for emergencies. And then, of course, any of the estate planning documents, where is all that information? But then this is what Heather was talking about. Contact information for credit card information. The credit card company, the account number, the contact information. And this is good. You could be on vacation and you get robbed, right? And then at least you have the access. You have all your credit card numbers and the place to call that you can look up. And then you could actually make some of those calls to cancel some of those. And then we have all the online accounts and have access to them. Facebook, Twitter, retirement accounts, credit card companies, online reward. Who's going to get your Kohl's cash, right, when you pass away? So where's all that account login, and how are you keeping those passwords? Now, we have a section in this book that you can write it. I know that my mom has a notebook hidden. I can't tell you because this is being recorded, right? But she has a password book that she writes all and then scratches out every time you have to
Update it.
I keep an Excel spreadsheet that lists all of the different online accounts with my username and then my password. And then now they're asking you like 3 different crazy questions to verify that you are who you are. I can't remember half the time what I said about what was my favorite childhood book, or what was my these are the questions you get on Facebook so people can scam you, right? Who is your first dog's name? What was the road that you lived on? But any of those that you would need for account login and password, you would put in there. So your partner, your business partner. So this is both family and personal, right? So you got the business stuff, you have all those other kind of things, the insurance, retirement accounts. What else could we have? Stocks, certificates, bonds.
I have a story to share about a local family who our local orchard in our community, the matriarch passed away suddenly last fall. And her husband made a decision to sell the business. However, they really, aside from the bank accounts, they really didn't have the password access. She was the one who did all of the square, so all the accounts, all the billing, everything for the actual business. And even now, it was certainly he could get that information by providing a death certificate and stating that he was certainly the person who now was in charge of her estate. But it made it difficult for transitioning the business. So for them, they had to wait and actually had to order. They couldn't get an update for certain parts of like the iPads or the Apples, because when she passed away, her passwords died with her. They didn't. No one else in the family had access.
And you think about a business like Quicken accounts are online now.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the password or know the password to get into your Quicken account, you're locked out. And for that next generation or the spouse to figure that out is
Or even to think
difficult.
about the transition to someone different if it's not just you,
To
if something
To a
happened.
son or a daughter or
This
whoever,
was a non-family.
non-family
He
member?
made a decision to sell the business, and so.
So,
Challenging.
so even more challenging. Now, some of you, some and online you might not, I've had the unfortunate experience about losing a spouse, and one of the, on the personal side, it was pretty easy to go through a lot of things with the death. You have to have a death certificate to prove everything, right? So that was pretty easy. The one that I had the biggest problem was memorializing my late wife's Facebook page. It took forever to prove to them that she passed away, because nothing's worse than a year later, someone comes, oh, it's their birthday. Well, they passed away last year. And do you really want those bad memories, those sad memories to reemerge? But how do you set down social media accounts should be part of this too. And they've made it easier since then about memorializing those pages, but all these social media accounts that are out there, how do you go in and shut those down or memorialize them in some way? So other things that people online might be thinking about that we might need to consider as we think about. It's kind of a morbid topic, actually, right? So when it gets down to it, to think about. And think about all the things you do on a daily basis, and if someone isn't there, that they take. You think about it in a.
Yay, come on in, have a seat.
Okay, I'm looking for this here. That's in our,
That's right there.
in that
In the
gazebo.
gazebo, yep.
It's in the gazebo, okay.
At the time about growing pumpkins. Or something, right? Tomatoes. So, you think about all those different things that if you think on your daily basis, and that's kind of why we gave you the spread or the worksheet to kind of work through. Those are questions just to prompt your conversation. So clearly defining what your goal for the business is in the future, but then think about all the unexpected things that could happen and how would it change our farm to operate in the future? So what are some unexpected things to happen? Usually we traditionally think death, we think of disability, we think of divorce, we think of maybe disagreement within the family. Then I ask questions, you have 7 weeks to live, what would be the most important things you need to do for your business to continue? And I think that's why it seems like a pretty innocuous question. Think about, and this happened when my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. What would you have to get done over the next 7 weeks to make sure, if you were in that situation, what are those things that you'd want to pass on to be able to run the business, let alone the family? The family is a separate issue here, but what about the business? What are some things that only you know how to do? My dad was the only one that knifed anhydrous on the crops. He was the one who applied the anhydrous ammonium. Why? Well, you think of it, it's one of the most dangerous operations that we do, applying nitrogen. So he was the one that took that burden on. So how can you train the next person to do that? If that is there parts of your operation that only you understand how to do? And do I need to train them all? We have a chat question. don't we?
Yeah, we have a chat question.
My siblings and I are currently trying to figure out how to subdivide my parents' farm. There are significantly different assets on different parts of the property. And what are some things we should consider? And if I'm asking that right, correct? Okay, so when you have, and that's part of the bigger estate planning scenario. I know there's a farm family that I've been working with. They're having a little disagreement because the brother said, well, I'll take this half of the road. Sister, you take that half of the road, and that's how we'll divide it. However, we know that on the one side of the road is maybe a little acreage, but it has more of the physical assets like the buildings and the grain bins and some of things that are part of that. Where on the other side of the road might have a tick more land, but its value is not equal to what's on the other side of the road. So that's, from your question, it looks like it's multiple siblings, which becomes even more of a difficult issue. So the first thing that an attorney will tell you is that you have to have a good appraisal of all those assets, whether that's the underlying land and then all the buildings and other permanent fixtures or that part of the property to get a complete asset evaluation, so you know what it's worth. And then, of course, you would have to follow the estate plan, how it's dictated on how that's separated. If it's separated in equal portions, then you got to figure out how we do those equal portions. And if it's, in some respects, it may go to the place when you subdivide it and split it. If someone's gaining a parcel that has a higher value, then they may have to then turn around and subsidize through cash or other methods to kind of equalize that to the other siblings that are on the other side of the spectrum. So there's a lot of moving parts in that, but the first thing you have to do is have that complete appraisal to know what it's worth. Any other thoughts on that, ladies?
Well, David, I just went through this with my sisters, on my mom's farm, Gavis. And, I have one sister that lives there with her family, and then me and my husband, we have our own farm, and then my other sister lives, outside of Dayton. So the two of us, the two older siblings, didn't want anything to do with the farm because we have our own lives.
You have your,
We have our own farm. She has her own life in Dayton. So we went through and we did the appraisal portion of it. And then my younger sister who lives there bought the other two of us out. That was how we worked that out.
you worked through that.
Yeah.
And probably some of the toughest part is the communication and making that happen
Mhm.
through communication between siblings, especially if there's maybe some discomfort between family relationships there. Any other surprises that you had in that? As far as the dividing, especially I'm assuming
Yeah.
from the chat question, was that in equal portions that it was divided based on your parents' estate plan? You might want to chat that back into the box.
Jacqueline, you can unmute and chat to us. Talk to us.
Yeah, it's not in equal portions. We're trying to figure out who actually wants what. But part of the property was recently timbered off, and part of the property has, the farmhouse and the barns, and my parents had a Christmas greens business, so part of the property has, old growth Christmas greens that's used for the family business. So trying to think through all that. There wasn't any estate planning in that situation, so we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and you definitely went through a very that's tragic how you lost your parents. So sitting down, the hardest part of going through these processes that you have to talk through, you're dealing with these issues in an emotional time for the family. So getting a good valuation on that and knowing that the timber sales has decreased the value on that one parcel is a big key to that.
David, is there any benefit in maintaining, especially if you are in, maybe not necessarily is a little different than just thinking about land and building the assets right for that, but what about even asset management? The things that you would accumulate, say like for taxes, where you would have all of the different
All
pieces of
the-
equipment, or like maintaining those too. Does that play a role in actually in helping to maybe divide some of that, or decide if it's, who's gonna take what?
Yeah, at first, I took a bunny trail when you were talking there, Heather, to talk about machinery. And the machinery is the tricky thing, and Robert Moore and Peggy Hall have written a nice fact sheet on the transfer of machinery. One thing to keep account for, especially when I'm thinking, all these things are on a tax form and we've depreciated our equipment out. And we're, number one, are both the partner spouses, are they aware of the tax, the behind the scenes things that are happening on taxes, especially when it comes to depreciation or the potential recapture of depreciation if you have to, when you sell it. And I think there are people are shocked with that there might be taxes when then they sell some of the personal property that's been on the farm because of the tax implications of recapture. So yeah, there's a lot of, even having the inventory, there's a lot of mistrust that happens out on farm families because, most of our farm machinery is not titled. And we have some weird arrangements in some farms as we're bringing the next generation on. The fact that maybe the son or daughter in-laws have purchased some of the new equipment that's on the farm, But the brother and sister that live off the farm don't realize, well, that tractor that's sitting over there was not bought by mom and dad. It was bought by my brother and my sister-in-law. But how do you prove that? Or it could be the flip side. There's all this equipment and really mom and dad really did pay for it. But now your brother's sitting across the table and saying, no, I paid for that rake and the disc bind and that baler. I'm the one who bought it. And those are mine. So that's not part of this estate plan. So in our document, again, there is a whole page just to talk about farm machinery and machinery that's there. And then if you're going to do something unique with that, I want to leave my antique car to X person, to make sure that's clearly decided ahead of time and as part of your estate plan so that there's no argument down the road because of that. So on the sheets, I gave some more challenging questions for you to think about, especially if you had to take over the farm, what changes need to be made. On our farm, it was my dad was the mechanic. But in the future, the three of us kids were not the mechanic. So who's going to become the mechanic in the future? Are there training weaknesses? A lot of times that might mean that somebody's going to have to get some financial schooling up so that they can handle the finances. You know, are there weird things that are happening in our families when it comes to like family relationships that we're going to have to overcome? So on the back of this sheet, what I did put was some strategies for developing capacity to manage the farm in the future. So I was just kind of spitballing it and brainstorming. So maybe we can go through those and then people can drop into the chat some other ideas. There's some strategies about developing capacity to manage the farm. You know, Heather, if I had to come in and take over your job, well, I don't know what your job's about. But if you have job descriptions and have lists of job responsibilities for everyone who's involved in the different aspects of our farm, it kind of helps you understand some of the things that you need to learn if you had to do that job description. Like if I'm the accountant portion of the farm and I have never heard of this thing called workers' compensation or doing a payroll reporting in the summer. If I've never done that, how do I know that I need to do it? So if you have these tasks or these job responsibilities kind of written down, then it's kind of easy to see the different things that you need to do. Having a good organizational chart of who answers to who in the business and who has a relationship to who. Develop a plan for cross-training the management and employees. And that could be as simple as who is meeting with the farm accountant or the tax accountant. If I'm not here and I'm sick and I can't, and I think COVID was really good for us in this aspect. If I'm down, who's my plan B, C, or D that's going to step up and do what I do on a daily basis? So we put that a kind of little more in motion because of COVID. I have test run using the opossum approach and the 365-day challenge. I love when people play dead, like an opossum. They play dead. They leave for a week. They go on a nice vacation. They've left their cell phone at home on the table. You can't get a hold of them because then really, you know, if they know what they need to know to run the farm in the future. We usually use that in transition planning. Is the next generation ready? 365-day approach, simply you train and you teach something one day, one thing a day. So at the end of the year, my business partner or my kids know 365 things that they didn't know from the start of the year. You know, if you have successors, we'll let them have their own enterprise and let them do everything for that own enterprise. If they have to hire employees to help pick pumpkins because we've started a little pumpkin enterprise over here, well, let them fill out all the employment verification forms and do the whole labor thing as far as onboarding them with the training to get them into the business and all the what I would call the human resource stuff. Develop a relationship with advisors, lenders, and marketers together. We already mentioned that. We mentioned develop a farm physical resource notebook. You know, I talked about the electric lines. Well, heck, I didn't even know where the septic tank was for the old farmhouse. Except for the only thing that I remember my dad saying is don't drive the tractor near the lilac bush in the backyard. I'm thinking he really loves that lilac bush in the backyard. I couldn't, why is he so attached to this stupid lilac bush? Well, it wasn't the lilac bush that he was concerned about. He was concerned about the septic tank, which happened to be right next to the lilac bush. So now I actually have a map drawn in my notebook, farm notebook, that has the overall footprint or look of the house, the farmhouse. And then I have the measurements to where the septic tank is. And then also have drawn where the leach lines go out into the field. And then, of course, we have the tile maps in it. We have where we have put buried electric lines. We have a natural gas line that we took from the house back to the milk house in another way so that we could heat the milk house with using natural gas. So all those things are in the notebook. I sold a house up in Jefferson, and when I left, the first call that they got was, hey, the line out to the sewer line is clogged up. Do you know where the clean out trap is? Well, I had to discover where the clean out trap was when I owned the house by digging and finding, they found it using a camera in the system that I paid them to find where it was. So I was able to tell them, go to the corner of the house and step off 12 feet to the north, and right there's the clean out trap. And sure enough, that's where it was. So those kind of things you can pass on really allows you to reduce stress on that spouse that you leave behind or as a child. And then develop an estate plan with all your advanced directives. I would go a step further, have all your funeral plans so that it's decided. Nothing's worse than deciding all those things when someone passes away. Plus the emotionality of that may lend you to spend more money than the person that died would want you to spend on certain things like the casket and all those other things, the flowers and everything else that you might have a funeral.
Yeah, my grandparents had everything planned out, and I really thought it was odd the day that they said, we want you to meet us at the cemetery.
And you physically met them?
Physically met them at the cemetery. Tombstone was set. They had everything planned out down to even that was already set, and they were both still alive.
And they had the tombstone there, and
Yep, everything was set where it was gonna be, and of course, it just had their names on it and their birth date,
the dash,
the dash.
but they were living their dash.
They were living their dash still.
Yep.
And then, when my mom passed away, we had to make all those plans, just like what you were saying.
It was a horrible to do, right?
It was difficult and challenging, but we got through it. But, did we do everything? But then after that, after my grandparents and after my mom, my aunt and uncle both went and they've got everything planned out, and they've given copies to their children, so.
It could be just as casual as casual. I say casually, right? Nothing's casual about that.
Yeah.
But when my dad was diagnosed, my mom and dad had never had the conversation about their preference on a traditional burial versus a cremation burial. And surprisingly to us kids, their views were completely opposite of one another and completely opposite of how we would have chosen based on how we knew them. So that opened up the door, and because my dad's was not planned, the best gift my mom has given us was hers is completely planned. Right down to if something happens and all her friends are not alive, then we cannot have calling hours. Or, down to the music, down to the songs, down to the worship, whatever it may be, she has it all planned out. So some of those things you can do. It just relieves the stress off of those that are trying to function without you. So, yeah, great. The fact that you met in the cemetery, that's even cooler. That you actually had that. So that leads me. My last point there was about hold regular family business meetings. Have family meetings. One thing that my wife and her brother are now doing is once a month, because they lost their mom tragically over 10 years ago. But now once a month, they meet with their dad just for breakfast, just to talk about family stuff. So not only does it give you a chance to get together, but it also gives you a chance to talk about the farm. It gives you a chance to talk just about life. It's a chance to go back and talk about stories that you might have forgotten. So those opportunities, sometimes it's planned with the family business and other times it's just with your family, having those conversations. Having a kitchen table conversation is pretty important. So with that said, chat out there to virtual land, what do you think? Other suggestions or things that you have seen that have worked for you and your family that you think would be really cool to share with the other folks online or even here?
Even here. in
Even
person.
here,
Even
yeah.
in person. Don't be shy.
Waiting for the chat to blow up, right? So,
I know, it takes time to type or sometimes come up with your thoughts as you're.
well, you know, this is such an easy conversation to have, right? About your death and what happened, and sometimes it doesn't become reality until it is reality for you about some of those things about that you wish you would have thought of ahead of time. And that's kind of what this conversation's about, just to give you some touch points and some things that you can think about.
Know that my dad was in the hospital a while back and then I went down visiting and he's like, here's my password to get into my laptop. Here's my password to get into my bank. And
Password for the phone, right? There's the phone.
And, but then I went back down a few days later to, pick him up and take him back to his place in Harlan, Kentucky. So we had a good 4-hour drive along the way. And had some of those conversations as we traveled. And he told me how he wants to have things done when it's time. So that way, at least one of us out of the sisters knows what his intentions are, what his plans are. So, you know, hopefully no day soon, but
Right, when it does, you'll be more prepared.
yep.
And one thing for those that have elderly parents, one thing that we all should be doing is should have a list of all their medications and what they take. Just something as simple as that. If an emergency happens, you know, most first responders will say, well, hope it's in their purse. A lot of folks will put it right for each of us, even for ourselves, right? About what are our medications and some of those. But we should have that for our parents or have access to it. So if we have to talk to emergency folks, that we would be able to have that ability to. Sometimes they go to a place that isn't connected electronically into their medical files for them to know that. So that's really good to have as children or a spouse to know exactly what those are.
I forget what it was that brought up in our office, but just a couple of weeks ago, our family consumer science educator came up and told everybody in the office that I just want you guys to know that my medications are on my phone. And we're
In
like,
case something happened to work,
in
right?
case something happened.
Right, yeah.
And somebody's like, well, how are we gonna get into your phone? I said, she's got face recognition, so we'll still be able to
Just
use
pull-
the face.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a question here.
Okay, do you know of any consequential tax changes upcoming? Oh, that's a great question, Betsy. No, none that is on the horizon. As far as your second part of that question, what is about the limit for changing the estate tax changing? So on the estate tax side, and I printed that off, we know that right now, because I don't memorize this, we're at about $11 million per person. So just over $11 million indexed for inflation for what we can leave to the next generation. So as a married couple, actually it's 12.06 for 2022, 12.06. So as a married couple, that would be 24 million, just over $24 million that we are able to leave to our, and because of there's no Ohio state tax, then we could leave to our heirs free and clear of those tax implications. Now and you ask a good question about what about the limit for estate tax changing? That amount, which is $12 million for all of us, is set to sunset as we move into the year 2026. So it reverts back to the old level, which is $5 million indexed for inflation. So it's gonna probably be closer to $6 million per person. So I know we've talked in our estate planning workshops that I plan on living past 2026. So when I'm doing my planning, I'm not doing my planning on $12 million exemption. I'm planning like I have that much to pass on, right? But I'm planning on that $5 million per person, or as a married couple, the 10 million. Now you go back into time at around 2009, that exemption that we had was $1 million per person. It went unlimited in 2010. And then from that, it started to go back up. So my caution is you look at your balance sheet, you know your balance sheet. If your farm balance sheet is over $10 million and you're a married couple that owns it, of course, then that's when you deal with your estate planning professionals to help you out. If it is below that, then you can pretty much kind of rest easy. However, I don't trust anybody when it comes to politics. So always be aware about the conversations that they're having about reducing the federal estate tax or getting rid of the step up in basis, which they had talked about a year ago. I know when President Biden was on the campaign trail, one of those thoughts was coming out from his camp was to reduce the 5 million to 3.5, which that would start to impact Ohio farm families. So we watch. We keep an eye on it. That hasn't happened at all. That's we're sitting at where we're at. I think they have bigger fish to fry when it comes to things that they're working on as policy. Don't think there's the movement either on the Republican or Democratic side to change outside of where we're at now. If I had to be futuristic, we thought about what happens when we get to 2026. Will they just bounce it back up? And it probably is going to be no. So we're looking at that $5 million per person when we go forward. So that's a great question. That's it. And if you do have more information about estate planning and you want to think and you want to have some conversations and help your family move through this thinking of the future of the farm, know that you can go to go.osu.edu/farm succession. So go.osu.edu/farm succession. That will take you to a landing page of some of the programs that we will have upcoming. Now, when you go there, because I haven't had time to update that, when you go there, you're going to see the programs that we held this last year. But know that in January, we have a 4-part online estate planning workshop that's going to be held on the Monday, starting, I believe, on January 16th, if I remember right. And it's going to be 4 Mondays in a row. So 2 Mondays, the last 2 Mondays of January, the first 2 Mondays of February. And you can do this online farm succession planning for the future workshop on a 4 evenings from home. And then some of our extension counterparts across the state are going to be holding workshops as we move in to the new year as well. So if you go to that webpage, you can see those, and Heather's dropped them into the chat there for you. If you want to check that out, we'll be posting those dates after we get out of Farm Science Review this week, so you can check into those.
Any other questions before we close out our session this afternoon? If not, we hope you can join us tomorrow for our topic on Wednesday is female farming financing options, opportunities with USDA Farm Service Agency, so FSA loans. And Eric Rieker is going to be our specialist that day. And then on Thursday, September 22nd, we have Bruce Clevenger from Defiance County, who is going to talk about the devil is in the details, that communication and record keeping piece that we touched on earlier during this conversation. So we'll talk more in depth about that on Thursday. So we hope you can join us again at 11:30 tomorrow, Wednesday, and again on Thursday, and share it with your friends, colleagues, whoever's out there to join us.
Thanks to David for
Thanks,
his time
everybody.
today.
David.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for joining us. You're welcome, Miss Mary.